You're listening to the N2K Space Network.
Hi, I'm Brandon Karpf, Executive Director of N2K Space. I want to share with you a word from our sponsor, the Italian Trade Agency. If you didn't know, Italy plays a critical role in the international space economy as one of the largest and most advanced aerospace manufacturing hubs. From satellite systems that connect the world to interplanetary missions that push the boundaries of exploration, Italy stands at the forefront of space advancement. JUICE, Euclid, Artemis, DART, and Webb, Italy's space industry had a significant part in each of these missions. Italy is now launching a new business acceleration program in the United States completely dedicated to aerospace with 6 groundbreaking new startups right in Houston. Tune in as ITA unveils the unparalleled innovation and excellence that brought Italy to be a top U.S. aerospace supplier. Visit itahouston.com/spaceitup23 to learn more. You can also visit space.n2k.com/ITA for a whole bunch of new information. And a sincere thanks to our friends at ITA for sponsoring this podcast.
Welcome to T- Deep Space from N2K Networks. I'm Alice Carruth, producer of the T- Space Daily podcast. Deep Space includes extended interviews and bonus content for a deeper look into some of the topics we cover in our daily program. In the week that India's Space Research Organisation landed the Chandrayaan-3 spacecraft on the moon, we're taking a look at the country's growing commercial space industry. The Indian space industry is currently valued at around $8 billion and is projected to be worth over 10 times that amount by 2040. One of the companies leading that boom is Dhruva Space. I spoke with CEO and co-founder Sanjay Nekkanti about the origins of his company.
Dhruva Space was an idea, I would say, that was thought during my college days. I started building satellites when I was 19 years old. One fine day after the success of the first Chandrayaan mission, there was a scientist from ISRO who had come to our university and said we as students could actually build satellites. For me, I wasn't really sure if that is really possible. Right. I have this unusual hobby, which is being a ham radio operator. One of the early satellites that students were building were all based on amateur radio communications. So my university team requested, if I could be part of the satellite mission and be part of the whole program. And that really got me into building satellites. And, 2 years down the line, we were able to realize a satellite. And I was thinking that, we're a country with 1 billion people in India, but there's not a single private company that exists to serve the global market. So that was definitely the tipping point or the inspirational point for me to think about starting a private space company in India.
So you just mentioned it, that it's new to India, this idea of private space. Can you talk us through how that kind of came about and how difficult it has been for you to sort of disrupt the market, so to speak?
India, and especially the Indian Space Research Organization, has done a lot of amazing things in space, right? Like we've gone to the moon, we've gone to Mars. We have one of the most reliable launch vehicle programs in the world. I think notable of them is we have flown more than 350 foreign satellites on the Indian launch vehicle. So over the last 30 to 40 years, the Indian Space Research Organization has nurtured an ecosystem of small and medium scale companies that have been building small components for the Indian space program. But majority of these guys have remained building those small building blocks, but important blocks for the Indian space program. But they never graduated from that phase to building like a full spacecraft or a full launch vehicle. or even doing operations. So largely, when we spoke about private space, there was definitely a wall that is this possible, right? As I just mentioned, when I, as a student, was building a satellite, that wall also existed for me. That can we as students build satellites? So it definitely took a lot of effort to break that barrier. But I would say the initiatives taken by the Indian government to promote entrepreneurship in general and bring in the startup culture has been like a major breakthrough in some of these endeavors seeing light of the day. Because in the early phase, like between 2012 and like say 2016, our audience would there was no audience to speak. Like if I would go to a private company and say, hey, you're buying satellite data from other countries, would you be interested in having your own space asset? People would be like, I don't think this is possible in India. Versus today, where companies really want to have their own space assets. I think we've come a long way. The timing is fine, a decade to get here. But to be very honest, I think the changes have happened only in the last couple of years, and the growth that is being seen, especially in India, has been exponential and not like slow growth. So it's fine. It's fun.
So you have a MOU with the Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center, known as InSpace. How much is that private-public partnership important to Dhruva Space?
See, InSpace is a new body that is trying to enable private space endeavors in India. So, they're acting as a bridge, not just between government and private companies, but also in a lot of cases trying to enable the companies to also get customers, not just within India, but also outside of India. So they have a huge responsibility to make this ecosystem grow and thrive. For us, I would say the support that they have extended in the last since their formation is very close to my heart. I would say because they have truly lived up to what they have been created for. They have helped us at every on our every mission to space, right? Like we have gone to space less than 3 times in a year, and at every stage in space was instrumental in solving some of the hurdles that we had faced, whether it is in terms of coordinating with different agencies to get permissions, or it could be in the form of getting access to test facilities. In certain cases, also getting access to expertise from ISRO scientists.
We'll be right back. So you mentioned that you've been to space a couple of times. Can you talk us through the missions that Dhruva Space has already been part of?
Sure. So our first mission happened on the 30th of June 2022. We tested a CubeSat separation system in this particular mission. For us, this was like our first mission to space. So we were all very nervous because all the components of this particular contraption were designed, developed, manufactured in India, and it had to perform. And yeah, it did its job. Its function was to, hold a dummy spacecraft and deploy it at a particular time. Because this was like a dummy spacecraft, we didn't launch it into space, but it was sticking out of the deployer, not creating like a debris. So then our next mission happened on the 26th of November 2022, where we used the same separation system to deploy two satellites called the Thibault 1 and 2. These two satellites are Dhruva's first two satellites, also India's first two privately built satellites authorized by the government of India. And we just completed close to 7,000 orbits, of these two satellites. And the beauty of the second mission is again the same, which is every component of the spacecraft has been designed, developed, manufactured in India, launched on the Indian launch vehicle using a separation system that is also built by us. So where I'm getting with this whole idea of doing everything by ourselves is that if we want to make space accessible to people, or if we want to make the ambitions of several organizations to have their missions in the orders of tens, hundreds, or thousands of satellites, we should be able to serve that market. And hence, we've been trying to build as many technologies as possible within the company. And we've been successful on the first and second mission. The third mission was slightly different. So this flew in April of 2023, where we tested two more variants of the separation systems, which can hold larger size satellites. One very interesting part about this mission is the deployers, or which are also called as the separation systems, were meant to hold payloads for extended durations. So, meaning, if I want the same deployer to take a mission to a lunar orbit or a Martian orbit, this is like a small step for us that, we should be able to hold the satellites for a couple of days and then make the deployment happen. So we were able to test all these functionalities. So the last 1 year has been, super, super fun doing these three missions in a record time.
Incredible to get them turned around in such a short space of time. Now, you mentioned quickly about partnerships of working with other Indian companies so that you've got a sovereign capability in the country. How much are you working with companies like Skyroot, for example, that we know of here in the US?
There are several new space startups in India. Skyroot is one of them. Agnikul is one of them. Both of them are launch vehicle companies. With Skyroot, we have already purchased a launch slot on their launch vehicle. So in the future, we will be flying a payload on one of the Skyroot launch vehicles. With respect to other companies in the ecosystem, we have companies like Pixel, which are looking at deploying a constellation of satellites. We have companies like Digantra, which is doing space situational awareness. We have companies like Bellatrix, which are building propulsion systems. So, in fact, we are in talks with all the companies. We believe that we have a lot to gain from each other. So we are trying to work together to solve our own requirements. At the same time, also see how we can meet global demands from India as an ecosystem together.
So you mentioned your global demands as well, and I know that you guys are working with companies outside of India. Can you talk us through some of the partnerships that you are working on with Cyberspace, for example?
Yes. So with Sidus, we've been contemplating the idea of utilizing each other's capabilities to serve different markets. One of the things that we are also really well known for is the space qualified solar panels. So we're looking at the possibilities of how we could have our solar panels as part of the LizzieSat program of cyberspace. Similarly, at the same time, it's a great platform. So we're looking at how some of the payloads that we are building can be flown on the LizzieSat program. And I think Sidus has a pretty exciting launch period coming up in the next couple of months. I think one of the other partnerships that I would like to talk about is what we're doing with Kines from France. Kines has ambitions to deploy a constellation of satellites and provide IoT services. Before that, it's like a dream come true. So here is an interesting story. I finished my bachelor's degree in 2010, and then I went on to do my master's program in Europe. In 2011, I had applied for a French scholarship. And in the scholarship application, I mentioned that India and France go a really long way in terms of collaboration in space. Like if you look at the early days of the Indian space program on the rocket development, India and France collaborated on the Vikas engine. And I mentioned about it, and I said, after I finished my master's program, I would go back to my country and look at building relationships between India and French companies to build technologies together or space-based solutions together to serve the global market. And this Kines partnership is a realization of that dream, I would say, wherein Dhruva will be building a satellite on which will be flying a payload from Kines, which is the French National Space Agency, and it will be part of the Kines constellation. And together, we'll be serving clients worldwide. So that's a super exciting partnership.
And what about Dhruva Space? What's coming up for you in the next coming months and years?
I think we are very excited to have our nanosatellites flying later next year. So we're building, so we have the P30 platform, which is a nanosatellite platform that can be utilized for Earth observation and communication applications. We have potentially about 8 missions that will fly within the next 18 to 24 months. So it's like pretty busy for us with the P30 platform coming up. In addition to that, I think, we have licensed the IMS platform from the Indian Space Research Organization. I think between 24 and 36 months, we will also be having our 100 kilogram class platform going up into space.
What do you think about India's space ambitions coming up in the next few years?
I can't complain. I think we're all very, very, very excited to be part of ISRO's ambitions. I think there will be a lot of opportunity for private companies like us to support some of those ambitions in the future.
What an incredible story you have, Sanjay. I hope you'll come back onto T- in the future and tell us more about what's going on with Dhruva Space. But thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you very much for having me on the T- show. And I look forward to sharing more updates as we explore space from India.
That's it for T- Deep Space for August the 26th, 2023. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. You can email us at space@n2k.com or submit the survey in the show notes. Your feedback ensures we deliver the information that keeps you a step ahead in the rapidly changing space industry. This episode was mixed by Elliot Peltzman and Trey Hester, with original music and sound design by Elliot Peltzman. Our executive producer is Brandon Carr. Our Chief Intelligence Officer is Eric Tillman. And I'm Alice Carruth. Thanks for listening.